Hey everybody, welcome back to the CY Show. Today, I have another investment teaching for you. I'm going to show you how to make $20,000 into millions in real estate. Stay tuned. My name is Cesar Yanez and you're watching the CY Show. Alright, so today I'm going to teach you how to build millions in real estate starting with $20,000. And this is something I learned from Robert Kiyosaki himself. He's a real estate investor and he's the reason why I got into real estate in the first place. So I'm very happy to teach you this. And I'm gonna go over how to use good debt, creative financing, and pretty much starting out with a small deal and building up your real estate portfolio. So I hope you like it. All right, well, I don't think I thought this through very well. I don't know if you can see, but we're gonna have 4 assumptions for this example. And the first assumption is gonna be the loan to value is 90%. So the loan you're gonna get for whatever property you're gonna purchase is gonna cover 90%. The second assumption is we're gonna assume there's no cash flow effect and no closing costs. So I'm just gonna assume that you're making a good investment and your cash flow is gonna cover the mortgage payment, vacancy, repair costs, insurance, etc., and that we're gonna have no closing costs. The third assumption is going to be no negative tax effect. So we're going to assume that this deal you're going to be able to deduct depreciation. So we shouldn't have a negative tax effect. And the fourth assumption is we're going to have a 5% appreciation rate per year. All right, so let's begin with step 1. So step 1 is property number 1. So we're going to buy property number 1 for $200,000. We're gonna buy it with 10% down, so $20,000, and the other 90% is the loan to value, so $180,000 for a loan. I'm gonna be very conservative with this, so I'm gonna do a 7% interest rate for 30 years, fully amortized. All right, so step number 2 is 5 years later. So 5 years later with a 5% appreciation rate, the property you bought for $200,000 is now worth $255,000. And the loan amount you got for $180,000 is now down to $169,000 5 years later. So now that you've built some equity over the past 5 years, you're gonna tap into that equity. So you're gonna do a cash out refinance, and you're gonna bring up your loan value back to 90%. So 90% of $255,000 is $229,000, and the difference between your new 90% loan to value and what you had is $60,000. So you have $60,000 you're getting out cash, and you're gonna use that $60,000 to purchase a $600,000 property with 10% down, which is 10% is the $60,000 you got from your refinance. This is step number 3. This is 5 years later after step number 2, and it's starting to get fun, right? So the first property you bought, so 10 years later that you bought for $200,000, 10 years later it's now worth $325,000 after a 5% appreciation rate per year. So your balance after remember you extended it back to 90% 5 years ago. So now your current balance is down to $216,000, and you're gonna do the same thing. So you've built some equity now these past 5 years, and you're gonna tap into that equity again and get some money out. So you're gonna cash out refinance, so you're gonna bring your loan value back to 90%. So 90% of $325,000 is $293,000, and the difference between this 90% loan to value and your old balance is $76,000. So you're gonna take out $76,000 cash from the first property you bought. Now, property number 2, the one you bought 5 years ago. So you bought this property for $600,000, and 5 years later with a 5% appreciation rate, it's now worth $765,000. Your balance is now down to $508,000. So you're gonna do the same thing with property number 2. You're gonna cash out refi. So you're gonna bring your loan balance back to 90%. So 90% of $765,000 is $689,000. And the difference between the new 90% and your current balance is $180,000. So now this combined is about $257,000. So for both of your properties, you're able to take out $257,000, tap into your equity. So now you have this money and you're gonna use this again as a 10% down payment. So 10%, this is 10% of 2.57 million. So 257,000 is 10% of 2.57 million. So as you can see now, you're starting to use debt to your advantage, and you're able to tap into bigger deals now. So now you're gonna buy a property worth 2.5 million. All right, so we're at step number 4. So this is 5 years later after step number 3. So let's start with your first property. So the property you bought 15 years ago for 200,000 is now worth 415,000. As you can see, your current balance is now down to 275,000. And again, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna do a cash out refinance. So we're gonna bring our loan balance back to 90%. So 90% or 415 is 374. And this new loan balance that we have, the difference between our new loan balance and the balance we had before is 98,000. So you're tapping into your equity once again, and you're getting out almost 100,000 for your first property. Now your second property that we bought 10 years ago for 600,000 is now worth 977,000 with a 5% appreciation rate. So our balance is now down to 648,000 10 years later. And we're gonna do again the same thing with this property as well. So take out a cash out refinance, bring our loan value back to 90%. So 90% of 977 is 879. And the difference between our new loan value versus our current balance is $230,000. So we're gonna tap into that equity for property number 2. And property number 3, the one we bought 5 years ago for 2.57 million, is now worth 3.28 million. Our loan balance is down to 2.1 million. And we're gonna do the same thing again. We're gonna tap it into the equity of this property as well. So we're gonna bring our balance back to 90%. So 90% of 3.828 million is 2.9 million. And the difference between this new 90% loan to value balance and our current balance is $774,000. So now you tapped into your equity for your 3 properties that you own, and combined all the cash out you got out from the refinance is about 1.102. Oh, 02 million. So now you have 1.1 million to use as a 10% down payment. So now we're gonna be buying property number 4 for about 11 million. Whoa. And finally we have step number 5, 5 years later after step number 4, and 20 years later overall after we bought our first property. So let's break it down. So our first property that we bought 20 years ago for 200,000, 20 years later is now worth 530,000. So it almost tripled in value, and that makes sense because historically real estate prices double every 10 years. So that represents that very well. Now our current balance on our first property is 352,000, and our equity money that we own, that we built, is 178,000. So that's good money we have on that, on property number 1. Now property number 2, 15 years later after we purchased it, is now worth 1.2 million. As you can remember, we bought property number 2 for 60,000, so it doubled in value in 15 years. So that's pretty good. Our loan balance is now at 827,000, and our equity, it's almost at $500,000. So $500,000 of equity in our property number 2, and almost 200,000 on property number 1. Now property number 3, we purchased it 10 years ago. If I can remember correctly, we bought it for 2.57 million. It's now worth 4.1 million, which also follows the rule of historically doubling, prices doubling in real estate every 10 years. Almost there, almost doubled. Our loan balance at the moment, 10 years later, is 2.7 million, and our equity is almost 1.5 million. Wow. Now, property number 4. This one we purchased 5 years ago for 11 million, and it's now worth 14 million. Our loan balance 5 years later is 9.3 million, and our equity on this one, property number 4, is almost 5 million, 4.7 million. So overall, in equity and money that's ours that we own over time, that we built, it's about 6.8 million. Yeah. So the equity that we built 20 years, during these 20 years on these 4 properties, is 6.8 million. That's crazy. So that's not even counting the assumption that these are investment properties and you're generating cash flow every month. So that's not counting that. This is only counting equity that we built and the refinance strategy we use to buy other properties. So this is a great example of using good debt to build your real estate portfolio, creative financing, starting small with a small deal. 200,000, a lot of people could start that low, and there are some deals like that out there. So this is an example of using good debt, creative financing, starting with small deals and eventually building into bigger deals. I mean, a property that's worth 14 million, it's not a luxury single residence property. This is a big apartment complex with a lot of units. So I hope you like this information. I hope it was helpful. I love doing this stuff. This is why I got a degree in finance and went into real estate, because I wanted to explore this and invest in myself eventually. So I hope you liked the information. Thank you for watching, and please like, comment, share, subscribe if you like the content. And I hope to come out with more investing videos like this, so stay tuned. Peace.